Jim Jordan took the fight straight to academia.
What used to be the bastions of free speech and the marketplace of ideas evolved into institutions of activism and suppression.
Now, during a House hearing, the congressman played a series of clips showcasing just how far left our campuses have gone, which is exactly what Bret Weinstein warned about years ago.
The problem, though, is when you speak out on a college campus from a perspective on the left that does not fit this orthodoxy, you are immediately categorized as on the right.
And today we're covering it all, because we're not here to follow parties blindly, we're here for common sense. So, if you're an independent thinker, hit the subscribe button and let's jump right into it.
If you can cue that up, we'll play this about what's going on college campuses.
Free speech debates have roiled college campuses with protests against conservative guest speakers.
The fight against conservative speakers on college campuses escalated.
Administrators failed to stop some students from heckling a conservative speaker on campus.
Former college swimmer Riley Gay says she was assaulted after giving a speech at San Francisco State University.
I understand and share your objections to a speaker whose rhetoric is offensive and clearly intended to shock and provoke.
I don't think they're less able to listen to opposing views. I just think they take less crap.
Students have been making national headlines protesting controversial speakers on campuses across the country.
Is free speech dead on campus?
No, we don't want him to speak. Hopefully we can drown him out.
That's conservative podcaster Michael Knowles being burned in effigy at the University of Pittsburgh.
Your opinions from the bench land as absolute disenfranchisement of their rights.
The president of the University of Pennsylvania, critics say she is not sending a strong enough message against anti-Semitism.
Hamas has changed the terms of debate.
The Jewish fraternity was hit with a graffiti attack of "The Jews are Nazis."
This is our university.
Now, for context, this hearing took place 2 years ago, and since then, things have only gotten worse. A recent survey from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression found that the majority of the 70,000 college students they polled, quote, opposed allowing speakers with controversial viewpoints, whether liberal or conservative, to speak on their campuses. And we've all seen how that plays out. Instead of open dialogue, students rely on protest and disruptions to shut down speakers before they can even begin. That climate is exactly why Steven Crowder brought back his, quote, Change My Mind series with wearing body armor, backed by dozens of security guards and sitting behind bulletproof glass. And the fact that basic conversation now requires that kind of protection tells you everything about how far things have gone off the rails.
Over 6 years ago, we had a hearing about attempts to curtail free speech on college campuses right next door in the Oversight Committee. The hearing touched on emerging threats to the First Amendment, safe spaces, cancel culture, and the targeting of conservative activist student groups. Unfortunately, this was not a fad, and the hostility towards certain points of view, and particularly conservative points of view, has only grown worse. And it's no longer universities just censoring their students. We now know that American universities were working with the federal government to systematically target speech on the internet. Just this week, the committee Republicans released information showing Stanford University worked with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, and the State Department's Global Engagement Center to censor certain speech in the lead up to the 2020 election. Big government, big academia, and big tech all colluding to limit Americans' First Amendment free speech rights. They were targeting jokes, political opinions. Most importantly, they targeted true information. But the speech that was censored all leaned a certain way.
Beyond what Jim pointed out, FIRE ran another survey in April of last year, this time focused specifically on Stanford students, and the results were shocking, to say the least. The report found that, quote, Stanford students were significantly more likely than students at other colleges to support illiberal and violent methods for shutting down campus speech. Adding, quote, 3/4 of those students said shouting down speakers is either rarely, sometimes, or always acceptable. And more than 1/3 said the same thing about physical violence. In other words, these students are treating speech itself as an act of violence. And that mindset has turned too many colleges into politically charged battlegrounds rather than places for learning. Now, Weinstein has been sounding the alarm on this issue since at least 2017. He even took his concerns straight to Congress in public testimony. So, let's hear what he had to say.
The problem, though, is when you speak out on a college campus from a perspective on the left that does not fit this orthodoxy, you are immediately categorized as on the right, which makes it look that the left is monolithic and all shares this opinion, but it's not the case.
Dr. Weinstein, what happened in your classroom, which I've seen videos of, was your classroom that day a safe space or a free speech zone or neither?
Thank you for asking me that question. A safe space
didn't look like it was safe to me.
Well, I believe in something that could be called a safe space. But what safe space means to me as an educator is a space safe enough to take risks, which is roughly the opposite meaning of what is being invoked on college campuses. The answer to your question is that a free speech zone cannot coexist with a safe space, because a safe space, by definition, according to this orthodoxy, is a place where you are free from being offended. So it is mutually exclusive.
This is the core reason behind what we're seeing today. And we have PC culture to thank for it. The shift really took hold around 2015, when a wave of overly sensitive progressives began trying to rewrite the rules of how society communicates. Certain words and phrases were suddenly off limits, not because they were hurtful or hateful, but because someone might take offense. A decade later, the results couldn't be more telling. A Harvard survey found that, quote, only 1/3 of the 2024 graduating class felt comfortable expressing their opinions about controversial topics during their time at the college, a 13% decrease from the class of 2023. And this trend isn't unique to Harvard. You'll find the same story playing out on campuses across the country. Brett went on to warn that this mindset is also extending into the curriculum, which is where the real danger lies.
This shows the absurdity of what is going on campuses, and you have lived it in a physical way. Dr. Stanger has lived it in a physical way. This is what is scary.
Free expression is a key feature of what takes place on college campuses that makes civilization function. But I would also point out that this is not just a matter of abstract ideas presented by speakers on campus. This is now extending into the classroom. And it's a question of what one can properly teach in a biology class, for example, which may well not be politically correct, but is nonetheless necessary for students to understand the organism that they're studying. So ultimately, this is going to manifest in our competitiveness as a nation. If we decide that there are certain things that are true in science that can't be stated in a college classroom, then our students will be undereducated relative to any nation that can solve that problem.
Biology is just one example, but it doesn't stop there. Some educators have actually argued that math is racist. Others have published articles claiming physics in the US is dominated by white men, as if that alone is a problem. One of those pieces was published in the Science Journal, with the glaring title, quote, "The Toll of White Privilege." This is what happens when the education system shifts its focus from academics to activism. Instead of preparing students with real skills for the future, it's turned into a platform for pushing social justice agendas. And if that mindset continues to spread, it's not just the classroom that suffers, it's the entire country. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, keep on thinking.